what you're going to see today kind of was one of those Phoenix moments. Just to give you an idea, we live in the suburbs. We have a changing demographic. When I began at Valhalla High School, we had 99% Caucasian within our campus. And as the demographics started to change, one of the first in-services that I went to was talking about how do we deal with gangs, because we had a couple of people of color coming in. It was one of those things where, because I taught at Man Middle School, which is on 30th and El Cajon Boulevard, which is Gangland Central in San Diego. So to walk into this East County school where people were, oh, gangs, please. But within the last 5 years then, our demographic has changed very, very significantly, and we have a huge English language learner population, which was never anything that we really kind of dealt with as a school or any of that. Our hugest population right now is we have a lot of refugees coming from Iraq. And so we are the second largest population of Iraqi people. There's us, there's El Cajon, California, there's Detroit, Michigan, and then there's Iraq. So that's how that all works, and we have a huge amount of refugees that are coming in. So there's kind of the setting for where we are within the school. The course that I did this project with actually kind of began as a survival, I guess, because I walked into this classroom, and this is in Theater 1-2 beginning acting class. Walked in the first day, ready to go, like everybody is, and I just went, you know what, because there's name games we were going to play, we're going to do all of this stuff, and I had to stop at about 5 minutes in and say, okay, wait a minute. How many of you here are fluent English language learners, or English language speakers? I had 45 kids. Out of that, I had 15 that raised their hand. And I went, now we have a game changer. So that began the yada-da-da-da-da, okay, we're going to do this type of stuff. So everything that I had pre-planned for my entire curriculum, and we're going to talk about this, actually, Ron and I had a workshop tomorrow, but we have benchmarked our entire curriculum for beginning theater within our district. So all of those benchmarks, everything, bing, gone, so here we are. So I've got a class now, or this class that you're going to see. I have several languages: English, Spanish, Arabic, Chaldean, Armenian, and Japanese. They were all in this class, all in here to learn theater. And there I was going, it's going to be really exciting. So we've got all the standards, the VAPA standards, the creative expression, the artistic perception, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so what do we do with this class? Well, I got it into my mind, I think this would be great to get these kids up and perform. To show them, because some of these kids are coming from cultures that don't necessarily appreciate the arts. So I said, I want to get them up, I want to get them performing, and I want to get them performing outside of Valhalla High School. So I made a goal for myself that we would perform at the Student Shakespeare Festival in Balboa Park of last year. So that the kids could see that what we're doing is not just something that we do in our little black theater space where there's, you know, pretty lights and things like that, that there are people outside of Valhalla's planet that actually appreciate and understand and know what we do. So, how do we do that? Okay, well, we're going to do Shakespeare because it's a Shakespeare festival. Great. Well, we're going to do the storm scene from the Tempest, which is Act 1 and Scene 1. Great. And well, just for fun, we're going to throw in puppets. Okay, that'll be fabulous. So this is kind of what we did. And the goal was then to take this act and scene, give them the background that they needed, perform this scene with puppets, but in addition to that, I wanted to honor where these kids were coming from. So we took this scene in Shakespeare. I had the Spanish kids translated into Spanish. I had the Arabic kids. Most of my Middle Eastern students can speak Arabic and Chaldean, but they split them up, so they translated into Chaldean and they translated into Arabic. And then we incorporated those three translations, because those were the primary languages, into our Shakespeare. So we would have the students say something in English, then somebody who was not a native speaker of the language would have to say it in Spanish or in Arabic or in Chaldean, because everybody had to learn a language. So that's how that came about. I'm just looking at my notes to see what other fascinating things I could tell you. I think the best way to do this, though, because I'm not a talking head, I'm more of an environmental type person, so I made a fabulous iMovie for you that kind of shows it, and my kids can tell the story much better than I. So get out of the way so you can watch.
My name is Luis. My name is Maddie. Marla. Evelyn.
Lisa.
Melissa. Linda. Savannah. I'm Ham. Kendra. Jocelyn. Destiny. Joseph. Unique. Dara.
I speak Spanish and English.
Speak English. Speak Spanish and English. Speak English.
I speak 3 languages: English, Arabic, Chaldean.
Speak English. I can speak English, Arabic, and Chaldean. I speak English. Speak Arabic, Chaldean, and English. English. I speak English and Spanish. I speak English. I speak Spanish and English. I can speak English, Chaldean, Arabic. I speak Spanish and English. I'm speaking 3 languages: English and Arabic and Chaldean.
For my students staring at each other.
Miss Stella Key, for that reason, perhaps a loose min and boat. And out of the door, breathing of birds running fast. Yakubun Isura.
Samples of the brainstorming that they did. That's my English language learners. That went really quick, but they identified the emotions through pictures as opposed to words. Shakespeare Festival itself in Balboa Park in San Diego. I'd like to say a few words in Chaldean and to better understand Shakespeare. I learned you can't change lines. The best part of the project was performing in front of an audience. That was cool. I learned that if we work together, we can make what we want. I learned that about Shakespeare and his work. The best part of the project is we didn't do weird, sappy stuff. So that's just the kind of, rather than telling you the steps, I wanted to have my kids show you what that's actually about. But that's the basic project, and you didn't get to see a lot of the incorporation of the language, but I really wanted to make sure that each kid got to have the experience not only of the Shakespeare part and the theater part, but the idea that it's not that easy to learn an entire language and make those sounds that you've never heard before actually words. So my English language learners got to teach my fluent American speakers how to speak Arabic, Chaldean, and Spanish, all with puppets and Shakespeare. Type thing. So that's the project.
So at this point, we move to a point in the protocol where we have about 3 minutes for questions that you might have in the audience. What kinds of things did you see that you had questions about? The questions are questions for clarification, so feel free to ask any questions you have right now.
So, how did the kids learn to make the puppets? You had someone come in?
I have a very good friend who is the president of the San Diego Puppetry Guild, and we've worked together in the past, and I called her in a panic. And we first started out with just creating bits of fabric and how do we make those come to life, and moved on to those little kind of foamy pool noodle heads that you saw, to the actual puppets themselves that the kids made.
So how did you incorporate the languages? Did they present it in the different languages?
They presented it, the entire thing, and then there would be a line that would be said in English and then said in Arabic, or a line that would be said in English and then said in Spanish. So it was all incorporated within the script itself, as opposed to doing an entire one in Arabic and one in Chaldean. It was throughout. Look how good I am.
So the audience is sitting there and they're understanding that the lines are being repeated? Is that what you're saying? I mean,
We explained that when we did that at the Shakespeare Festival. We explained to everybody that they were going to hear it in the 3 different languages. Yeah.
Suppose about the presentation for the audience, like what was the demographic there? Did you have like a lot of Spanish speakers, a lot of Arabic speakers?
You know, that was, it's, at the festival, it's just this huge promenade and people come by and watch or they don't type thing. So it was just the people that happened to be hanging out on a Saturday that stumbled onto the festival, or the parents of the kids that knew that they were gonna be there. A lot of my kids didn't even know where Balboa Park was. So, which is a huge landmark for San Diego. Yeah.
About how long was the scene?
The scene was about 5 minutes long, all told. So we just did that very first storm scene, and then we finished with Prospero's monologue. At the end, we are such stuff the strings are made on. So it wasn't very long at all, which was fine. I'm not sure we could have done much longer because it took us quite a while to get to that point.
Well, the timing is perfect. Just as a template, do we have other people that are presenting over the next 2 days? Can you raise your hands if you're a presenter? So we're going to use this as kind of a template for you folks that are going to be presenting. This was exactly 15 minutes up to this point, and this is the presentation piece. Now we move into the segment of actually looking at the work and kind of contemplating the work. So at this point, Kirsten will step aside.
The learning.
It almost doesn't matter, the learning is the same. I kind of gone all the aspects of it. I don't know how, but the connection between what the languages, I would imagine the emotions still sounds the same, that is in the languages.
First of all, congratulations. It looked like a really exciting project.
Thank you.
And I'm wondering what would have happened if you had shown only one image over there, and that we were all looking at the same image and shared as a group what we saw, and then instead of having you tell us what the goals were, if we talked about, well, we wonder what the age of the students was, or those kinds of things. I think it would have maybe turned the whole thing around.
Mhm.
Because I started over here at the end, and I'm seeing this Arabic script, and I'm going, well, this is an interesting lesson, I wonder what it was. And so as I was going back that way, I saw some of the front end of it. That's what made me wonder, what if we had just seen one image, what our impressions would have been? I'd also be interested in hearing from you what the English language learners' reaction to this were, which from the pictures it seemed like it was quite positive, and what the other students' reaction was of assuming that role of teaching them their lines.
As far as my EL kids, they loved it. Because I think for one of the first times, their language, within the context of the subject, I had kids kind of running into them in the halls, and how do you say that again? You know what I mean? So there was all of a sudden that element of teacher, as you say, and that was huge for those kids. There's one of the little gals in there that was in the video. She had arrived from Iraq the week before we started filming this, and very, very limited speaker, but she could certainly teach somebody how to say, "Bosun, the wind is howling," or something like that, as best she could within her language. So I think that there tended to be an era or a feeling of respect within the group that wasn't necessarily there at the beginning.
The other thing I learned too that I never realized, even though I'd seen it a lot on the news, that Arabic script is absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's an art lesson in and of itself.
It's a challenge because it's this way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those kids come in and they have to learn a whole new,
Written left to right from the bottom up.
yeah,
isn't it?
and how do you go and how do you, and then different symbols and, oof.
Artistically, how did you make choices to combine the languages so that it's interesting and not just repetitive, echoing?
What I did was we had, within the language, the English was spoken first, and then another character would come in with that same feeling or whatever with it, so it wasn't just the parroting of the, so somebody else, maybe there were two mariners coming running in or whatever, that would say that line. So they had to act it, they couldn't just say the language.
I am so sorry that we have to stop here.